Yesterday, with the excitement of the new vlog, I actually didn't draw anything. So the first thing I did when I woke up today was run to the desk, open up the notebook, and start drawing.
All I know about the 90s is that it's an exhibition to put you back into what the 90s in Berlin was like, but I really have no idea what that means. So it's going to be a surprise.
To be honest, I don't know. I don't know much about the Berlin Wall. And that's a little bit embarrassing.
Yeah.
But I don't know anything about the Berlin Wall. I don't know anything about the division between East Berlin and West Berlin. I don't think any of our friends would really know.
Yeah,
I don't think that's something that we really talked about.
Yeah, I don't
school.
think that was in our history class. They're only going to teach you a certain amount of things. They have their curriculum, and I think it's our responsibility as we grow up, as adults, as we get this conviction to learn what actually happened in the world and fill in those gaps that weren't filled in school. I think that's important. I do want to know more about here. And every time I talk to a Berlin local, they talk about, one of the things that they talk about why they love Berlin or what makes Berlin so special, they always mention Berlin's history. So I think that's what I want to get out of this experience that we're about to go to. I do definitely want to know more about the history of Berlin. The fact that pretty much the city was reborn in the 90s is so cool and special. It adds to why I love it, because I was made in the 90s. I just want to know what was going on as I was coming into this world, what was changing in the world here in Berlin.
The shallow knowledge that I know about Berlin, I know that they have a anti-establishment mentality. They have a very mistrusting mentality. They have they're rebel. They're urban. You can't tell them what to do. If I want to express myself on this wall, that's exactly what's going to happen. And that right there, that sort of spirit is very conducive to an entrepreneur.
The history of Berlin was rebuilt by young squatters, by creatives, and that's the part that I'm excited to learn about and confirm with our experience today. But also, just having conversations with people here, we'll get to talking about what we do, and they say, oh, what type of, there's a lot of meetups, there's a lot of startups, what type of people do you want to get around? And then when we say, oh, entrepreneurs, creatives, they're like, oh, just walk outside.
Right.
Everybody in Berlin is an entrepreneur or creative. So that speaks for its history, because it was rebuilt by these type of people, and it's fostered this community how many years later still.
We're going to go get ready now and go to this 90s museum, learn a little bit about the history of Berlin. We'll see you in a little bit. Peace. Okay, we got showered, ate some breakfast, and now we're ready to go to the Berlin 90s Museum.
Yep. Beanie? Check.
Just got out of the 90s Berlin Museum, and it was crazy. We learned a little bit about the history. I think to make a full vlog about the history, we may have to break this up into different days and really get a full sense of what happened here. A lot of what went on in the museum is they talked about pretty much how the vibe and how the feeling was after the wall came down. And we learned a little bit about after the wall went down, both people from both sides went across, and there was a huge sentiment of just happiness and joy. We got to hear from stories of people who actually lived in that time. Techno became really popular. Hip-hop moved in, and from different people we heard that it felt like a big party.
Yeah, I think it was great, and like you said, it was all about what happened after the war, so we will be going on a later date to a museum that talks about before the war and how we even got to the war. But yeah, I think my favorite part was just the interviews with different people on how it was before and after.
And just getting out of the museum, we come and we see the Berlin Tower, and I gotta get the whole history on it, but I know that it used to be a representation of communism, and now that's been repurposed to actually mean unification.
One of the stories that stood out was somebody from the East. When the wall came down, he was about like 19 or something, and the wall came down, his friend came over, got out, went to the restaurant on the tower, had a beer, and the thing was that in the East, the beers were like so much more expensive, and now he came onto the West Side and he got to go to this monument, go all the way to the top of the restaurant and have some beers. But just that was it was a big sign of reunification for a lot of people.
Everyone we talk to talks about the history, so it's great to actually hear a little bit about it. See you in a little bit.
Okay.
So I'm going back through the footage, and I'm just I'm talking here with Jackie, going through what we learned and what was told to us. And the 90s Museum, I think, did a really good job of kind of telling us what the feeling was like after the wall came down. And really, when we came into this morning, we were talking about some stuff, and I don't think we had a real idea of what we were getting into, what we were going to learn today. I think we're coming from a place of, unfortunately, not really knowing much about the war, not really knowing much about what actually happened here in Germany and here in Berlin. And so we want to know as much as possible, and there's a lot to learn. So this one museum can't give us the whole picture, but what it did do was it taught us how people felt after that wall came down, and pretty much it made it seem like it was a big party. They showed us interviews with different people, and they gave us some history, they gave us some facts, and essentially it's, imagine having this huge border that wasn't there before. One day it's there now. You're separated from families, you're separated from parts of the city. The east side wasn't as affluent as the west side was, and there's just this divide. So let's say you're on the east side. That wall coming down is a symbol of opportunity. We heard from one guy who was a civil engineer, and he went across that border, opened up a agency directory, him and his friend. He did A through K, and his friend did K through Z, and they found a job within a week. So if that wall hadn't been torn down, he wouldn't have had that opportunity. And I think that story can be repeated through different people. We saw how it used to be in the city, it used to have a sense of gloominess. If you walk around, even still today, the style of people is they wear black. But back then, it really was a mirror to how they felt themselves. And when the wall came down, it was like, we don't have to be like this anymore. We can be happy. We can have fun. And you started to see a lot of partying. A party scene kind of arised in that. So we still have so much to learn about what happened before the wall. How did that wall come to be? What happened leading up to the war? What happened after the war? I think here we got a real microscopic view of what the wall represented, which was a divide, and then it getting torn down, the feeling of joy, of being united. And through that, you start to see the style of the people, the grunginess, the anti-establishment mentality, and sort of why this type of music, why house, why parties, why all these things kind of started popping off. You have a bunch of different people from all over now coming together, a lot of creatives, a lot of artists, and all of this cultivated into the environment that built up Berlin to what it is today. So I hope you got a little bit of information. We got a little bit of information, but at the end of the day, it's one small piece. The story is much bigger. We're going to have to organize ourselves and go to a few different museums, maybe pick up some books and really dig deep into the history of how this all came about and what happened throughout and then what happened after the fact. But I think the 90s Museum Berlin did a great job of showing us the mood and the vibes of what it was like when that wall was torn down. So if you're in Berlin, I definitely recommend it. I only showed you small bits and pieces of it. It's 5 different rooms that you can go and visit, and a lot of information. Great people. The hosts were very nice, very welcoming, very informative. And when you're there, you pay for your ticket, you walk in, and you're kind of left to yourself to kind of walk around and really grasp everything. And there's a lot to learn. We spent hours there just taking everything in, understanding, having conversations. But that's pretty much where we're going to leave it here. To be continued. History of Berlin. Hope you learned something. Take care. Till tomorrow.